how do we use coaching skills even before the speaking engagement begins? Why do we need coaching skills at all? What does coaching bring to the table that we may not otherwise have? As speakers, typically speaking, we're there to share certain content with people. How to do something, what to do, why to do, etc. So we are there in the field of knowing that this is what I know as a speaker and this is what I'm sharing with you as a speaker. Most of the time, we come from that angle. And of course, we then put all the jazz to it by adding in stories, adding in humor, adding in engagement questions, etc. But nonetheless, 99% of the times, speakers are there to tell somebody what and how and why, right? Which is all in the world of the known factors. So if we are the kind of speakers who only keep coming in and telling people what they already know, then we're going to be soon taken over by robots, aren't we? It's already happening. As speakers, we now have the opportunity to tap into some coaching skills where we can really share with people something that they don't already know. And that's their unknown. That is their blind spot. We're helping people tap into a part of themselves that they haven't got any clue about, the complete subconscious. And so for that, I'd like you to think about something that you want to change in yourself. You might want to change some habits within yourself. You might want to innovate more, get clearer about something. It might be that I want to sleep earlier. It might be that I want to smoke less, drink less, get less angry, or not take things so personally. Or it could be that you want to exercise more, eat healthier. It could be anything that could be on your mind. Or it could be that you want to connect better with somebody in your life, or want to achieve a specific result in your life and you know what to do. So think of one example and you will notice that you may already know exactly what you need to do. So very often, whatever we want in our lives, we may know exactly what we need to do. So the knowing is there, but the doing is not there. How many of you can relate to that? I definitely have that as well. So that means there is a gap between the knowing and the doing. So why does that gap actually exist? Many of you are coaches here, so I'd love that engagement and I'd love you to share with me, what are your thoughts on this? Why do you feel there is a gap between the knowing and the doing? Why are there two different islands that we exist in? We are here and where we want to be is there. What do you think is going on? Some thoughts? Anyone? Just chip in whatever comes to your mind.
I think the habit loops play big roles. We run on a certain habit loop constantly from the morning till night, and some habit loops are so ingrained in us that it's almost very difficult. Seems very difficult. Even if you try to eat differently or go to sleep early or exercise early in the morning, just something inside of you resists because just there is no pathway in your brain strong enough to take you on that road. So the old habits take over and old emotions come in to say, okay, why today should I do different?
Absolutely, yeah. So there is definitely that. We have those habit loops. So our habits are like a 6-lane highway in our neurology. And it's like the path has been crossed thousands of times. So automatically our brain goes into exactly what we normally do. And why am I bringing this up is because as speakers, our fundamental job is to help people shift and change. If only people shift and change in the moment whilst they're listening to you, then they will remember you forever. So how exactly do we create that is what I will be discussing with you today. And how do we bring coaching skills into this? So the bottom line is that there are differences between where we are and where we want to go, and there is a gap between them. So what we're talking about today is how do we then bridge that gap? What skills do we use to help people bridge that gap in their speaking engagements so that they will have live on the spot shift in their thinking? And if they can have that, they will remember you, right? They would want to hire you again, simple as that. So our journey today is going to be to look at 3 different aspects. One is what happens pre-engagement. So how do we use coaching skills pre-engagement? So before the speaking journey begins, right? So now anything and everything I'll share during the pre-engagement stage can actually be used for not just the speaking industry. It can be used for your training, consulting, if there are any counselors here, therapists here, speakers, etc. You can use it for anything. So we're going to use some coaching skills to look at how do we really deepen our pre-engagement using coaching skills. Then we will look at how do we then deepen our engagement itself. How do we use coaching skills to deepen our speaking? And then eventually, how do we use coaching skills during the Q&A time or post-engagement? So what are some skills that we bring to the table as coaches? And I know many of you are already coaches. I was telling earlier to Nina that, I feel like I'm teaching grannies how to suck eggs because a lot of people are very, very experienced coaches here already. So let's have a quick look at the pre-engagement. Pre-engagement is when we are first meeting people. So during pre-engagement, essentially what's happening, right? You are meeting your client and they're going to make a decision. Number 1, do they like you? Can I trust you? Do I want to work with you? Will you deliver? Right? These are the decisions they're making. So essentially you're connecting with people and then you're building trust with them. So how do you really connect with people at a very deep level instantly? And it all comes down to how well do you connect with yourself? So in coaching, we learn how well do we really connect with ourselves? What is our relationship with ourselves first? How much do we love, accept, understand ourselves? And if we are extremely comfortable with ourselves and we love ourselves for the good, bad, and the ugly, then we say, okay, this is the ugly part of me and I'm working on it. And we all have ugly parts. Who does not? But accepting them that, okay, this is something I don't like about myself and I would love to shift. But that's okay. I'm a work in progress. I'm working on it, but we are accepting of it. And so more we become connected with ourselves and more we accept ourselves, then more we're going to accept other people. And less we're going to judge other people. So less we judge ourselves, less we judge other people, because we can only give to other people what we have within ourselves. I can only give you a cup of tea if I have a cup of tea. So we can only give other people trust, comfort, acceptance, and lack of judgment if we have that for ourselves, right? So yes, people can fake it till they make it. But my point is, let's make it so we don't have to fake it. So if we can really give it to ourselves, then we don't have to worry about faking anything, because we will naturally exude that and we will naturally give to other people what we have. So because no matter how much people fake connection, no matter how much people fake trusting others, at the end of the day, people can see that, right? They can really see that. They can really see that, oh my God, these are micro expressions. People may not even register it consciously, but subconsciously they're registering it, right? So they know that there's something going on. So the first part was all around connection. Then the other area where we can really use coaching skills, pre-engagement, is to create laser sharp clarity about the challenges that your client is facing. And again, I'm sure as coaches, you're already doing that, but there is a specific skill that you can use to create even more laser sharp clarity. So let's take, for example, somebody brings you in to speak about, to help their board trust each other more, right? So they say, okay, I would like you to come in and work with us to help our board members develop more connection, more trust, and yes, basically more team building. I want you to work on that. So you would go in and then use your coaching skills by asking them, how do you define trust? How do you know that you do not have it right now? What are the evidence and telltale signs that you don't have that, or that how much you have is not enough, or how much exactly do you have? And when you have, if our engagement was 100% successful, then what would that trust look like? So if we were 100% successful in our engagement, if I was 100% successful in delivering this speech or in delivering this training or any kind of consulting, then how will you know that that has turned up or that has showed up? So you can use coaching skills to help people dive deeper and deeper into how does it show up. And so this is a real life example where I was called in to work on trust, and trust is such an abstract concept. So I asked them exactly these questions, and they were actually scratching their head thinking, never thought about that. And immediately, the minute they haven't thought about something and you're asking them that question, and then you give them that space to think about it, they will have to come up with an answer. And if they don't, then you can ask them again that how can we measure the success of any engagement if we cannot define the key parameters? And then the reply I got at this point is that, okay, Avni, what's going to happen is that if we trust one another, then people will share more ideas with each other as a board, which are not belonging to their own department. Okay, so at the pre-engagement level, we created laser sharp clarity using coaching skills, and then made that clarity into something extremely concrete. And not only we made it concrete, we then made sure that it's measurable. So we did like a pre-engagement survey to actually measure how many times in a month have you shared cross-functional ideas. And then we did the engagement, and then how many times in the next 3 months after the engagement have you shared cross-functional ideas. And so you could see straight away that there is a shift. And then that proves that it was worth hiring you, because we have X percentage of shift. So these are coaching skills. And I think, as I said earlier, we have many coaches here. So you're probably using some of these skills. Some of you may be, some of you may not be. Yeah. Let's go to the next slide, which is around during the engagement itself. So when you are with people, now this is going to be more focused on us as speakers. So the first thing is, of course, our presence, our peace, and our power. And then we'll go to powerful questions. And then we'll talk about subconscious shifts, which is how I started the whole conversation in the first place, that there is a difference between where we are today and where we want to be tomorrow. Even though we know exactly how to get there, we still have a gap. And we'll talk about how do we as speakers bridge that gap. So let's talk about the first one, which is our presence, our peace, and regaining our power. So on that note, I remember speaking to my speaking mentor, Martin. I shared with Martin that, hey, Martin, I can really be myself in my coach training classes. And I'm in the state of flow. It's as if I'm not there anymore. It's like I don't matter. My ego is not there. My focus is entirely on my participants' journey as to where they are and where they need to be. And I'm entirely, completely 100% there for them. And the connection is amazing. I can really feel everything that they're feeling. And that's a great feeling. And I really feel like I can shift people and transform people in my coach training. However, I'm not able to do that with a large audience. And Martin then, of course, taught me a technique. And he says, actually, Avni, it's very simple. How many of you feel sometimes nervous that, okay, if I'm in front of 10 people, I'm fine. But if I'm in front of 100 people, oh my God, my heart is beating and it's out of my body, right? And we don't feel ourselves. So I was explaining to Martin that, hey, I feel like I become a porcupine. That's exactly the word I used. Okay. I said I become a porcupine if I'm on stage. And I really feel like I'm in a shell. And in this shell, all I'm thinking is I better not mess up. And he says, exactly, that's what's the issue, Avni. And I said, then I feel like I'm in a shell. And even if there are people in the audience who are connecting with me, giving me lots and lots of love and all the best vibes, I just don't feel connected with them. It's like they're just faces. And there is no connection whatsoever between me and them. Whereas with my coach training clients, it is 100% connection. I feel like I'm literally connected with them. I'm not a different person to them. I can feel everything they feel. So he said, Avni, think about the state of mind you're in before you enter your coach training class. Who are you and how do you feel at that time? And suddenly I remembered, of course, and I said, yep, I can feel it. I can feel that absolute calmness, presence. I'm cool, I'm calm, I'm collected. And I really feel myself and feel extremely connected with myself and other people. And he said, that's exactly the state of mind you need to be in before you walk on stage. That's exactly where you need to be. And he said that then you can multiply that presence and that connection with hundreds and thousands of people as if they are an extension of you. And you're totally connected with them. And that simple yet extremely profound piece of advice is what made me going from what I would call a porcupine, okay, on stage to essentially, where I think Irina will share, right? Irina, the words used at the end of that speech when I was at ICW, right? People shared it was magical, mesmerizing. They said that we felt so connected. And so the same thing happened at the APSS when they had asked me to quickly come on stage and share a few things. I went in and the speaker asked the audience, how did you feel when Avni spoke to you? And the words they used were, we felt connected, we felt loved, right? And that was only a 3.5-minute conversation. So how did they feel loved? And it was all because of what Martin taught me, okay, to really just extend that connection. So that's one thing I wanted to really share, that the most important thing is that presence. And that presence really does come from our deep connection with ourselves. So more we can really, as I come back to what we shared earlier, is that more we can be grounded, more we can love ourselves, less we judge ourselves, more we are connected and more we can connect with other people. And once we connect with other people, we can then just extend that connection further and further and further and further and further. It's as if we are all just one people and we're completely tuned to where is a person and where can I possibly take them? What is it that they care about the most? And how can I offer something to them that they can take away and move it forward for themselves? So you're speaking to them for them and you don't matter at that moment. So that's the first thing I wanted to share. The second thing was, as you saw on the slides and as I shared, is the art of powerful questions. So a powerful question is not just one that sounds good. A powerful question is one that helps a person think beyond where they're currently thinking. So this is where I'm going to come back to that original example of we know what to do, but we still don't do it. I know I need to run. I know I need to eat healthy and sleep early, but we still don't. So then there is that gap. And that gap is there because there is stuff going on in our subconscious minds. And how do we do that as coaches in a one-to-one scenario is that we ask them deep questions. We give them the space to think. And then as they answer us, we then ask them another question to really help them go as deep as they can into themselves. So we could use that as a way of sprinkling our speeches with very powerful questions, deep questions. So I'd like you to think about what is it that you speak about? What is it that you train people into? Okay, think about the topics that you're into, whether it's performance, whether it's leadership, whether it's transforming anything that you're into, shifting cultures. Think about everything that you can tell them that, hey, whoever my audience is, these are the ABCDs of what you need to do, right? Think about all the knowledge sharing you do, all the content sharing you do. And then think about the gaps, like where are the people at the end of that? How much can they actually apply what you have shared in their lives at a practical level? And where are those gaps? So have a think about that. What do you normally speak about? And how much do people absorb it? How much do people practically implement it. And I hope that some of you might be noticing some gaps. Yeah, you might be noticing some gaps between what you speak about and where people are. And it's those gaps that you can fill in through questions. You could ask them some powerful questions. That how likely are you to implement this? How likely are you to be able to implement this? And if you're not able to implement it fully, then which parts are you not able to implement? And why do you think that's there? What could be going on? What might help you implement it? What are the missing pieces of the puzzle? So you could ask them some deep questions. And of course, right now, I'm not giving any space for pauses because I know we need to end in about 5 minutes. However, you could essentially give them longer, deeper pauses and deep questions so they can really think whilst you're on stage. And then they can reflect on what is really missing? What is that missing piece of the puzzle? Now, if those questions, if anyone's not a trained coach, if those questions don't come automatically, then you will definitely know someone who's a trained coach. So you can then talk to a trained coach and say, hey, let's brainstorm some questions that I can ask my audience. Let's get to the post-engagement part where we can really contextualize the questions. So for example, when I was delivering to ICW, at the end of the speech, I could have said, okay, do you have any questions? But I didn't ask that. I made the Q&A very contextualized. So I said, okay, everyone, I've shared a lot. So take a moment to let it all sink in. And I really gave them quite a pause, 20, 30 seconds pause, let it sink in. And just ask yourself, how easy is it for you to implement the techniques that I have just shared in your practices, either for other people or for yourself? What do you think might be your challenges in implementing this? And then I asked, again with pauses, lots of pauses, that what could be the missing pieces of the puzzle that I have not yet shared with you that you want me to answer right now in the Q&A. So you can see how straight away we've deepened the Q&A and made the questions very context-driven. And then when people share, whatever questions they share, we can apply deep listening skills where we are really moving away from our biases, our judgments, our assumptions about what they are sharing, and really engage in to understand what are they really saying, what's said, what's unsaid, what's in between the lines, what is the emotion conveying to us, and how well can I really understand what they're really saying. And so I can respond to them from there. Okay. And similarly, I had a very challenging question that was posed to me at that point in that particular ICW, but I did not see it or feel it as a challenging question. So technically it was a challenging question, but I did not feel that. I felt like I looked at her intent behind it, the person who was asking. The person asked something along the lines of, wow, this is really getting into almost, because I was talking about parts coaching, and they said that, where you're talking to different parts of yourself, okay, and creating congruence and unity between all of them. So she said, this really sounds like almost psychotherapy, where are the boundaries, and what if somebody goes into something that is really, very deep and they can't handle it, etc. So I basically I thought about the intent that she has behind the scenes, and her intent is to, of course, safeguard people, to protect people, and to make sure that people are going to use such a powerful technique with wisdom, right? So I heard that, I did not hear the surface. And so I answered her at that depth. So again, using that deep listening to understand people's intent behind the words and not just the content, going beyond the content and going to the intent. And so then I answered her from that perspective and shared with her how a coach can really figure out whether or not they're ready to use that particular skill. And how can they figure that out? And what is it that they need to really develop in themselves so that they are aware of the fact that, okay, am I ready to use the skill or not? Because she wasn't wrong. That skill is a very deep skill. And if you're not fully trained to use it, it could lead to something that may not be very helpful for the client. Okay, so people have to be ready for it, and then they need to use it. So she had a point. So I honored her point, answered it as to how a coach can figure out whether they're ready to use that skill or not. Okay, and the last point I had on the slide is around feedback on measurable outcomes. So you can ask people around what was the measurable outcome at the start of the engagement that we talked about at pre-engagement stage. And then if we can do feedback on that specific measurable outcome, then that'll be helpful. So I think I might be soon running out of time because we need to give it a little bit of time for Q&A. So then I would just end by sharing that we will take some questions right now, in fact, and then if you want to connect with me, this is where you would connect, right? So I'm on LinkedIn, and if you want to share some learnings and takeaways from today, you can do it here. So I've shared a fair bit, really, really quickly. We talked about some deep concepts of really connecting with yourself and doing a very deep pre-engagement phase. Then we talked about how do you then use coaching skills during pre-engagement, during engagement to ask those deep questions, and then post-engagement. So I'd like all that to sink in with you and ask you, what questions do you have? And, how did this conversation resonate with you? What didn't resonate? What questions do you have?
There are two ways. You can just type your question in the chat, or you can raise your virtual hand and we'll go.
Can I ask?
Yeah, Abhijit, go ahead.
Yeah. So excellent presentation. I think I'm presenting to a faculty of speakers, trainers, coaches. So it's more of a train the trainer at a very senior level, and I had my entire content ready. I think from your content, there's a lot which I can do to change. So you've got me thinking. Now, my question is very straight because as a professional, I'm a professional chartered accountant, and I speak with a lot of young professionals, and a lot of them are very rigid when it comes to learning something new. And in most of the cases for young professionals, this is a part of their curriculum, which is a tick box exercise. So when these guys are rigid and not willing to change, you may be at your best, as I say, with your energy, excitement, passion, whatever you've said, all the skills. But when on the other side, you have a very rigid person who's just not. So how do you incorporate some of the techniques? Yes, I think there was a lot of way which I would try to change. But when you have a dead resistance at the other end, what would you do?
So how do you melt people's hearts when they are resisting? Right? How do you warm them up, and how do you really engage them? Right? Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
So, Abhijit, I'd like to ask you, what do you currently do about that? Because essentially, you want them to see their selfish benefit in working with you, right?
Yes.
So you want them to see exactly why they should work with you, and if they worked with you, what's really in it for them. And there has to be something in it for them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing that program, or you wouldn't be teaching it, or you wouldn't be engaged, right?
So for me, it's a mix of at times a shock therapy, or it's a mix of a huge carrot therapy. So it's both. Contextually, what is working.
Sorry, I didn't quite understand that. Therapy, carrot therapy, essentially, what do you mean?
So something is that if they don't do this, it'll be very, so like cigarette smoking, if you don't leave it, these are the bad points you'll have. Or maybe if you leave it and do this would be the things which you gain. So it's a mix contextually of what will basically, depending on the intelligence or the intellect of the audience, you adapt your conversational style or your style of connecting with them. Yeah.
Got that. So on that note, I think the answer is definitely in your question there in terms of your explanation, right? Who listens to anyone, and whoever wants to listen to anyone if there is a threat on the table? Like, I've got teenagers, right? And they don't listen to me if they are scared of me. They don't listen to me if I give them ultimatums. Like, there is only so much people want to do when they're scared. So Abhijit, I would just go deeper, right? Go really deeper, and kind of, I don't know how much flexibility you have, and I don't know what your business model is, and I don't know who your stakeholders are, but somehow find a narrative that is absolutely not about the stick, right? Or the carrot. Okay, so the carrot is something that's a sweetener, but the stick is not, right? So this thing that you do it, or else, if you don't do it, then something bad's going to happen. If you don't do it, this is the last call. Anything along those lines, Abhijit, people are unlikely to want to respond. It's like, oh, I'm only coming here because I have to come here. So their attitude is ruined before they even see you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
It's like, just I mean, yeah. And so it's like an executive being coached, but the whole framing of the coaching is so negative to begin with, and that happens. The executives completely put off from coaching. They're completely like this the whole way through. They will not open up because they have a bad impression of whatever is happening at this point. They see it as a threat, right? So I would just say, speak with the stakeholders, Abhijit, and look at the way that the entire engagement is framed and presented. And if it's presented as an amazing opportunity for them to really develop and excel and be great at, and a really great opportunity for them to learn, grow, excel, if it's presented that way, they are more likely to take it positively.
Fine. Thank you.
I hope that helps.
Thank you, Avni. Thank you so much.
Sure, you're welcome.
Any other questions? Anybody? Couple more questions, not a problem.
If no questions, I'll quickly just share this slide whilst Nina is going to do the closing. And please do connect with me on LinkedIn if you like. And there is this right-hand side QR code, which goes to today's talk. So essentially, the PSAI's poster is shared there. And, I'd love your thoughts, takeaways. If you want the slides, let me know there as well. I'll send it to you. And that's the right-hand side one.
Right. So thank you so much, Avni, for that very insightful way of, especially the pre-engagement, engagement, and post-engagement phases of coaching that can be applied in your speaking or speaking on the stage and elsewhere, and how you start off by building up trust, asking powerful questions, and then taking your client from point A to point B. So then they'll be like, aha, now I know the way. So coach becomes friend, philosopher, and guide both as a coach and when you're on the stage. So thank you very much. Thank you again, Avni, for joining us all the way
Thank you.
from Singapore.
Not too far away. I'm coming to India very soon, next week actually.
Oh, then we should meet up. We'll meet up.
Yeah,
Looking forward
flying.
to that. Thank you, everyone, for a great evening. See you all.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you, Avni.